Hey guys, my name is Jeff and I've been a painter for almost 30 years. And today I'm going to show you how you can paint this entire room in a weekend. And this is all the gear we're going to need. Let's just jump right into it. Quick little rundown of my rig. This is my Sims tray and my Sims bracket. My arm, put the liner in like that, we're good to go, all right? We're using a Worcester cage and a 15mm roller. We use a stick, okay? So I can paint a lot faster and get a better finish. We got two brushes. I got one to cut with. This is an older one, and this is my duster. Duster is simply this. Get the dust off before you paint. That's rocket science, I know, but if you have dirt sitting on your ledge from when you did all your patching, and then you start painting, you're gonna have a really lousy edge there to cut the baseboard paint on. So we're gonna have a wall color and then a trim color. You wanna keep that line nice and clean. Use your duster before you caulk. You do use the duster as you paint. Use the duster in between coats. Okay, here we go. Now, bought this paint a couple of days ago. See that? And I don't have any stir sticks. So, we're gonna put it on the shaker. There's a bit of separation happening. The acrylic sitting in the bottom, colors have surfaced. Remember, paint is a mixture, not a solution. As soon as they stop shaking it, it starts the process of separation. Okay? Here we go. Boom. Now we're perfect. Okay, here we are. We're gonna put 3/4 of this can into here. And it should come up to just underneath that little bracket. Okay, so that when I stick my paintbrush in here and it sits in the bottom, about 1.5 inches of paint. That's it, it's perfect. Okay, now I'm ready to roll. So I can push my brush into that, comes up fully loaded. I clean off the sides. And you can see the inside of that brush is fully loaded. That's the secret to painting, guys. Paint from inside the brush, okay? Now, we're gonna start in the closet, just like you should, so you get used to the brush, used to the paint. Different colorants make even a paint that you might love. If you change your color, it might need more colorant. And they can thin the paint down, make it react differently. So we're gonna put the heel of the brush and then push the tip. All right, and we're going to create that fan, and we're going to paint from the top right corner of the brush. We're going to draw that line down the wall. And as a homeowner, you can try cutting in an area like this. You want to cut in underneath your shelf support brackets. Okay, you want the short side of that wood to be your semi-gloss paint as well. Okay, and you'll notice that when you're painting from inside the brush, you're not going to get a huge buildup. Working from inside the brush, we're going to set the heel, we're going to push the toe up, the tip up, sorry, and you're going to try to intentionally draw a line with your paint a couple of millimeters below that crack, before that joint in the ceiling. Okay, you don't want to go right into it. Majority of people that are painting are going to be painting what I would call older walls, and they're going to have a texture. Okay, they're going to be like rough. They didn't have acrylic back in the old days. Or you're going to be doing brand new construction. Okay, and in those cases, what you have is going to be flat paint on the wall. In a lot of cases, anytime you have flat paint, there's a texture, there's a resistance, like painting on sandpaper. Okay, so the first coat that you do with your brush is the one that adds an acrylic layer. Okay, it's like adding something smooth and silky. And then the second coat, when we come back, we'll show you, it's a lot easier to push that paint right in and get a perfect cut line if you're painting over an acrylic surface, okay? And we'll see that when we get to the second coat. The closet will take you almost as much time to paint as the rest of the room. You have so much brushwork in the closet. I generally load my paint stick standing upright. All right, there's enough bending over and awkwardness going on. Whenever you get a chance to stand upright like a normal Homo sapien, take advantage of it. When it's first getting loaded, do this about 15 or 20 times. You want to push paint into the microfiber sleeve. Now, my rule of thumb is when you're painting, you paint north and south, okay? If you start at the top with the full roller, you're gonna leave a lot of paint on the wall, okay? So, right away, we're gonna go like this. Use the paint stick, keep it short, roll up and down. Now we're picking up extra paint. So we're gonna stretch it out, okay? Now, you're gonna see that there's not perfect coverage here. That's intentional. This paint is not designed to give you one coat coverage. This paint is designed to give you two coat coverage. But those two coats have no VOCs. So it doesn't smell like somebody's armpit in here. It doesn't get you lightheaded, okay? It doesn't make you Jones on the weekend when you're not painting because you need to get some kind of a fix. North and south on the sides, great. Move that paint around. Don't put all of the paint on one side and then go paint the other, okay? Where one side will be droopy and the other side will be thin. There we go. Now my roller is somewhat dry. I can pick up the extra paint and move it around. Remember, this roll does two things. It picks up paint, it lays it down, and then when you go over a surface that has more paint than what's on the roller, it picks it back up again. Okay, so that's why you can paint in one direction, turn around and paint the other direction and get an even coat because you're back rolling. You're taking 70% to 30% and then coming back over here when you're 30%, hitting 50%, picking a little bit up and then laying it down somewhere else. Okay, now here's the only place in the entire paint job I'm gonna let you do this, and that's go left to right. Because up and down in this area is just ridiculous. You're gonna leave way too much paint on the wall. So, we're gonna hit it like this right in the middle. Okay, this is the power of the pull. We're gonna paint that in. And then I'm gonna come back here where there's not as much paint as where I started, but more than where I finished. I'm gonna spread it around, going left to right. And even switch hands if you need to. Get that first coat, okay? There we are. And you don't have to go too close to the top or the bottom where your cut line is. Leave yourself a couple inches. All right, so that's first coat in the closet. Now we're gonna hit the rest of the room. Remember, there's one rule that you've got to keep in mind. It's like keeping your edge wet. So wherever we start, we're cutting. The paint dries in about 1 hour to tuck. It gets tacky and sticky. So if you have 1 hour from when you start to get that first part of the paint wet with the roller so that they blend together, tops. Better to do it in 30 minutes. So when you're working, I recommend paint one section of wall at a time. Cut and roll the wall, cut and roll the wall, and then once you get good, you can cut the whole room and then roll the whole room. That's fine. Now when we get to the light switch, we're gonna wanna paint all the way around it. You don't want to let the roller do all this work, okay? All right, now we're just getting some of that extra paint out of my brush before I attempt to make the cut. I'm gonna fan out and then I'm gonna power through that cut line. Okay, heel the tip, heel the tip. All right, now we'll just run that through. Which leads me to my next point. Because you're fighting against gravity doing your ceiling cut, at some point in this process, you're gonna have too much paint in your brush where you don't want it. Remember, my paint's only getting dipped in 1.5 inches, but the paint is starting to soak up. It's almost at my metal, okay? So as soon as I'm done cutting this wall, I'm gonna go wash this brush before I do my next wall. Being upside down means every time I push on it, I'm pushing it further and further into the brush, and I don't want that happening. That is going to end up clogging up my brush and shortening my lifespan of it, because as long as my bristles are flexible from here to the end, I'm good. As soon as I get too much acrylic in here, now my bristles are only flexible for the last couple of inches. that's when it becomes a duster. And trust me, you don't need that many dusters around. Again, if you're doing that, it's a great time to grab your mini roller, okay, and put texture on that wall to within a couple millimeters of the outside corner so you don't end up running around the edge. Will make all of your outside corners look perfect in your house, okay? So the only place there's any brush lines is just a couple of millimeters here, just a hair. Plugs, okay? The reason we're doing a big circle is because there's a lot of paint on this brush. And we don't want to have a lot of paint left over when we get where we're going. We don't want to trust the roller here, okay? We want to make sure that we have good coverage, okay? And then we're going to come down and then up. That's how we do it. I want to stand a couple of feet away, nice and relaxed, hands below my heart when I'm working. You got to go a little further than do it, okay? Now I'm fully loaded, so I don't start up here, okay? I want to start somewhere near the middle. And then work back up to the beginning of the wall. And I'm getting to within about an inch of the corner. Again, I'm being careful. If I go too close, I can scratch up the wall. This is called back rolling. Now I'm picking up extra paint that was left on the surface, and I'm pulling it forward again to get myself even distribution. Okay? Always make sure that your cage is pointing in the direction that you're painting, because there's more pressure here than here. So once you've back rolled, when you start going this way again, you're lifting up all the extra paint on a soft side instead of the harsh side. You won't get ridges that way, okay? So we're gonna have a little bit of fun in this video. When I get to the next wall, I'm going to show you two other different techniques for rolling. You can decide which one is easier for yourself. All right, I only need a little bit more paint to finish this. Okay, so just touch it a little bit. Just a quick touch, a couple rolls. You'll get enough paint to finish off. You don't have to load it up with a full roller, or you're going to be left with too much paint on the wall. And then you'll have to back roll forever. Now, this is where we use that mini roller. Just adding the texture to that wet paint before it's dried. The W, all right? We've all seen this. Someone will come along and show you how to paint like this, right? Holding on to the bloody thing. All right, what's the first thing we notice here? Well, we're not going floor to ceiling, right? So, and because there's no stick, I have no ability to exert pressure, okay? I can only paint the top half. And I gotta come along and do the bottom, all right? Drives me crazy. The other technique is this one. With a pole, and you go floor to ceiling, go half line over, until it runs dry. And then you go back to the beginning. And you pick up all that extra paint. And then you run forward again. It works. You gotta have good control. You gotta have a good stick. And you've gotta know your paint so that you don't leave drips. The other problem they have with W is I have a wet edge here, I have a wet edge here. Okay? As a homeowner, we all know what happens. You start painting, phone rings, kid falls off the swing, the dog's barking, you gotta put your gear down, you gotta go into the door. When you have two wet edges, you're in a lot of trouble if the time elapses too far, right? You're gonna have to come back, you have to sand that edge, then you have to paint. Or you're gonna literally have a W line sitting on your wall. Working like this, floor to ceiling, you only have one wet edge, okay? So now I got a whole hour to get that edge wet. Now we're gonna let this dry. We're gonna come back in a couple of hours as per the manufacturer specs. All right guys, everything is dry now. It's time to go on to the second cut and roll. But before we do that, very important step, we have to sand our wall, okay? So, this little handle comes with a little hidden secret in the back here, and that is this. And here we go. Because all of these things are universal threads. There we are, we thread that on. And now we sand. Now, I'm using a 9-inch radial sander. This is a 220 grit paper, okay? For anybody who wants to know. And here's the process, nice and easy. We're going to sand with a little bit of pressure, but not too much. After a couple of hours, the paint is dry, but it is not cured. It takes weeks for that, all right? So we're just holding it flat to the wall. Oh, this is amazing. Back in the day, we used to have a rectangle sander and it used to roll over on us. Put a hole in the wall and then you're right back to square one. So this is a tool that is a must-have. All right, now, see this right here? I've got a couple of white spots poking through, okay? That's texture that was on the wall. And that could have been dirt. It could have been from me not doing a very good job of sanding the first time. Doesn't matter. Okay, here we go. That'll all cover this coat. No panicking. There we go. Now we just want to make sure that we're sanding this until it's baby smooth. Now check this out. Here, we'll do this on camera. All right, so a relatively clean hand, okay? Where we sanded, we're picking up blue dust. So I've gotten this question before about leaving the sanding dirt, all right? This fine dust on the wall. And people say, what do you do with that? How do you wipe it down? Do you sweep it? Do you mop it? Like, the answer is nothing. Leave it in there, okay? This is paint, okay? In solid form, and it is dust. And so all paint has what we call solid contents, all right? It's what gives it the hiding factor. So there is actual solids in the paint because remember, it's a mixture, not a solution. Okay, so it's a combination of a lot of different things that are suspended together for limited time and are constantly separating. When you sand a wall like this, the dust that's left becomes part of the solids for the next coat. If you don't sand in between coats, your paint job is going to look really, really messy. There's always dirt, there's always lint, there's always something. So sand before you start, sand in between coats, and then leave the dust there so you get great hide coverage of your paint job. That is a pro tip. So obviously we're starting here with a pretty new brush. I'm gonna try to load it up a little bit. Here we go. And start your painting somewhere inconspicuous, right? Like in a closet's perfect. Because there's two things we gotta do. First, we gotta condition the brush by getting it loaded up with paint. Secondly, you gotta get used to how much pressure we're gonna use. Okay, so pressure is when we're pushing those bristles to create a line, okay? So, a couple of things happening here. It's good to start out where it's safe to make a mistake. Let's start here. The back side behind the door, right? All right. Now, doing a little bit of painting with a clean brush is going to get you where your brush is now ready to roll. You can't go with a clean brush and then get the most obvious spot in the room and cut the ceiling. Okay? You want to get your paint inside that brush working really nicely. There we go, right? Get your pressure figured out, get a little muscle memory happening before you start cutting lines, right? Working some inside corners. That's going to push that paint inside that bristle really nice. And then when we got all that done, we're ready to come up here and put the paint on low, right? Get a lot of that paint out of the brush, and then you heel, push it into the tip, and then pull. That's it. All right, now we'll finish cutting all the sides, and then we're going to push our bristle into that corner until it's nice and filled, and we're going to set our bristles in the crack and then just pull. Okay, that is why you don't need tape. My system works. So here we go. Okay. All right. This is really loaded. It's been used a lot. So we're gonna have a lot more paint here than we actually need. So what I do is I'll just run a little bit off, and then I'll paint a couple of other surfaces first. So I don't have quite so much paint on the roller when I go in here. All right, there we are. Now, we don't want to get that saggy butt look on our paint job, so make sure you don't overuse their paint. You don't have to worry about coverage. Like I said, it's been sanded. Second coat covers like you wouldn't believe when you have a good quality paint. Okay, like, yeah, now you can see the brush and the roll, but when it's all done drying, you won't be able to see that at all. Always paint the sides first in a closet so that you're dry up against the wall here. All right, and you paint the back wall before you head out. Okay. All right, there we go. All right, so again, start not at the top. There's a lot of paint here. All right, we're gonna run that roller out a little bit. Maybe 3 or 4 rollers full. Look at the coverage and the stretch that you can get on that paint is incredible, right? This is why I'm saying use about 40% of the paint on the second coat because it stretches and covers so much nicer. There we go. Now we're gonna go pick up all that extra heavy paint on a relatively dry roller. We're gonna come back here now. Get as close to the bottom and the top as we can, texture underneath the plug. When I look at this, I've got a small piece of wall left and then that little sliver by the door. So same thing, I'm gonna take some paint off. Okay, and now I'm gonna go do that spot by the door. Okay, all right, here we go. Now I don't need much pressure because let the roller do the work, okay? It's about coverage and texturing the paint. I'm gonna need a mini roller there, and now we'll go back over this side and finish rolling out that wall. Piece of cake. So now the roller's relatively dry, right? Well, we'll hit the beginning, we'll pick up the extra paint, and we'll back roll into our wet line, because we don't need to leave a lot on the wall. You wanna get a professional look. Less is more. Let the paint technology do the job. You don't have to slop it on. You want to stretch it out till you've got really good coverage for the least amount of paint. And that takes a little bit of practice and time to get used to. Now what we're going to do, we're going to just do this a little bit here. We could use the mini roller, but there's just enough paint here and there's already good coverage up top. Here we go. And if I'm on a bit of an angle, then what I do is I'm going to get great coverage for about 3 or 4 inches. Okay? That way my pressure is here. I don't ever slip off the wall and hit the white. I just come over a few inches at a time, roll down over that corner, and then blend it in. Boom. All right, brilliant. Now that is a perfect second coat. Time for the trim paint. We're going back to, paint that I used a few days ago, and it's completely separated. This is what happens. All right, so here's my tool. Got a drill, and I've got a Helix mixer. I've used a few different paint mixers over my career. I'm liking this design because it really is going to stir up all that acrylic that's going to settle in the bottom. Okay. And we're going to put it on 1 speed, low speed. We'll just dump it and give her a spin. This is what we got to do. You're not going to drive back to the store and ask them to shake it for you. All right, now I'm going to turn it on an angle, and it's going to pull it from the top to bottom. Okay, there we go. Now we got that where we want it. I'm going to just, get that down to about 2 inches. I am. Clean the can. If you work clean, you stay clean, okay? And then I'm going to throw this tray liner cover, set this aside. If I need more paint, I can pour it out of that tray back into my can. But it's important to work in the right position. So here we go, just like we're cutting a ceiling. Obviously my scenario here is a little strange. You're probably looking at the floor going, what the heck's going on here, Jeff? And I'm like, honestly, I don't know. Somebody installed shoe molding right against the baseboard, tight to the floor, and then put this old cheap rubberback carpet in. So I'll show you the technique. And that is start in the middle of the base. Okay? Till we get the brush seasoned like we did with the hallway, with the closet, sorry. You want to season the brush. And then we're going to go heel. Same thing. Get the tip in there into that corner. Okay? Now, this is different. For this angle, we want to get the entire brush line sitting on the top of that trim. And then pull a single line. Man, oh man. Yeah, this is not seasoned yet. I'm gonna make a hell of a mess here. That's what I'm gonna do. There we go. Okay. Okay. Once we get the brush seasoned up a little bit, now the secret here is to get a line, right? So you set the brush flat, get some pressure on it, and we're looking for the tip basically to draw the line. Okay, and once you get the line established, you just hold your bristles in that crevice where that natural line develops, and you just pull the brush and let the brush do the work. Okay, and then painting with enough paint here that it should all cover in one coat. Now, the secret to doing this in one coat is you want to tint your paint. If you buy semi-gloss paint right out of the factory, and it's just semi-gloss white, it's going to be a little bit too translucent. That's why I go architectural white. It's got some colorant in here, okay, which gives you higher hiding capability. So even though my blue paint is in fact actually on the base trim, when I do this with a seasoned brush, okay, go back, clean up all the mess. Now, you can run around a room, do all the base in a bedroom in about 20, 30 minutes. Okay, shouldn't be that difficult. A lot more difficult is having to wait a couple of days until the paint is nice and dry, put on painter's tape again, not knowing where the natural line is, okay, and then painting up against the tape and then peeling the tape off and hoping that it, it adhered nicely. This is some of the weakest part of construction is the trim work, where the caulking line is. Okay, it's where you're going to run into your most problems, most visual bumps, dirt, and everything else, just because the nature of construction is a dirty place. And the baseboard is right near the floor. So if you're trying to rely on tape to get a straight edge, you never will. There'll always be something in the way. Now, is that not just the most perfect line you've ever seen in your life? It's not me, it's the system. You can do this. Well, here we go. We'll put on some cover plates, change the light fixture, clean this pig up a little bit, and let's show you the reveal. Cheers. Now listen, if you know how to paint, you can paint your whole house and get great return. But if you're taking on a project that's a little bit bigger, consider joining our membership program. We've set up a DIY community in Discord, all right? So you can send us pictures and video, ask questions, and I can look through that. So I am there to help you out. Really, at this channel, it's all about having you be successful as a DIYer, all right? So if you want to be part of that great community, then hit the join button on the screen, and we will see you in a video again soon. Cheers.